at a time when rural hospitals are struggling to stay open in this Commonwealth. We are the second worst state in the nation. They call it a judicial hellhole for frivolous lawsuits being lobbied against our hospitals.
Coming at you from the Carbon County Cocktail Lounge, this is Talking with Doyle with State Representative Doyle Heffley. As always, we're joined by the indomitable Hunter Kipe and the disembodied voice of producer Chuck running the ones and twos. Doyle, what are we talking about today?
Well, we're just doing a little bit of a recap. We've had somewhat of a busy week in Harrisburg, but we're really not getting much accomplished. The House Democratic majority just seems to be running more progressive bills. Still has yet to put up a budget vote, and we're here the second week of July. And folks back home are wondering when we're going to get a budget and what the problem is.
So what is the holdup? What do you think's going on right now behind closed doors?
So the governor gave his budget address where he kind of ascended onto the House floor and stood at the podium for about 5 hours and spoke about his mammoth budget. And here's the problem, right? The governor is pitching a $51.5 billion budget, which overall is about an 8 or a 9% increase over spending last year. And the collections that the state is taking in right now, what we're collecting in tax revenue, is $46 billion. So that's a big part of what the issue is, right? So the governor wants to spend about $5.5 billion of one-time, non-reoccurring money for fixed costs, baking it into the budget. Now, we do have some reserve funds, and there's some carryover. So there is some additional money there, but it's one-time money. And with him spending that down within 2 years on this budget trajectory, right, we are going to have a massive tax increase. And we've seen it, right? The House Democrats on the floor have proposed, the governor's still pitching Reggie, which is a $2.5 billion tax on your energy bill. So if you're not paying enough in energy, if you don't think your electric bill's high enough, well, hold on, Josh Shapiro got something for you, a higher energy bill. He's also, they're pitching, as we talked about in our previous podcast, what they called tax reform, which was actually about a $2.5 to $3 billion tax increase on small businesses in Pennsylvania. So it's like it's about Josh Shapiro, for doing all his press conferences, wanting to be middle of the road. Josh is really as progressive and left leaning as Wolf or Rendell was, and he's spending the money that the taxpayers have yet to send him here to Harrisburg, and it's going to lead to big issues down the road.
No, for sure. And I just saw on Instagram yesterday, he posted a video talking about SEPTA and how we're not giving more money to SEPTA. What's going on with that? What does he want out of the budget for it? Yeah,
so right now, that is probably one of the biggest holdup in the budget, and I commend the state Senate for right now drawing the line, and I voted against that, the SEPTA, as I'll call it, the SEPTA spending bill. Really, what the governor wants to do is take 1.75% more of the sales tax revenue and divert it to SEPTA. It's about $290 million a year that he's taken out of the general fund going to SEPTA. Now, mind you, the Pennsylvania Turnpike is $13 billion in debt because that all went to SEPTA, and the Pennsylvania Turnpike is still sending $50 million a year to SEPTA, so that if you're driving a turnpike, paying tolls, that's where the money's going. And the governor is going to continue that, because I had an amendment to take that out, and they voted it down. So, and then in 2028, it's going to go up again, so it'll be over 3%. So SEPTA and mass transit agencies will be getting about 8 or 10%. And at the same time, SEPTA has not had a fare increase since 2017. So that's a big part of this budget debacle right now. Now, look, the governor could take that off the table to let's get these numbers a little bit closer. Let's get this budget passed so our counties...
Why isn't there a fare increase, though? Because when you look at our toll roads, which is probably one of the most expensive roads in the United States, and it's going to keep going up, why isn't the fare going up to ride public transportation in Philadelphia?
I'm with you. Yeah, that is a good question. I haven't gotten the answer to that yet. It's exactly why I wouldn't vote for this, and exactly why the governor's wrong, and the fact that he's holding up the entire state budget primarily over that. They want to talk about skills games. That's $150 million, right? That's not going to. I mean, that's a drop in a bucket to what the other spending is. But that's something we should address. But that's not what is really holding up the budget. It's the governor wanting to spend too much, and his obsession with wanting to ensure that SEPTA gets all this extra money from the taxpayers across Pennsylvania.
Well, even though the budget isn't really going anywhere, probably the hottest topic of our week, and I think it's going to continue on for quite a while, hopefully, is saving women's sports. Do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, and that's a big issue. We see it at the national level. The president has come out and issued some executive orders. I think there was some legislation that was also passed federally, and stating that men and women we have to respect Title IX. Title IX says that women's sports have to be equal to male sports, right? And women want to compete against women. Women don't want to compete against men, right? It's not. It's just not what Title IX was set up to be. So there was legislation that passed bipartisanly in the state Senate, Senate Bill 9, which said that biological males could not compete in women's sports in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward, I would say. But I think it's about 85% of Pennsylvanians, maybe 90% agree with that, right? People can do whatever they want to do. But when it comes to Title IX, we're going to protect and preserve it. We're going to make sure that female athletes have every opportunity for scholarships, for national recognition, as men do, right? I mean, the WNBA, for example, right? I've been watching a couple of those games now. They got all these players. It's actually exciting and fun. But if you put the NBA stars in there, it's not going to be the same, right? So why would we do that to young women in high school, to have to share a locker room with a biological male? We had the honor of meeting Riley Gaines a few months ago, and she spoke eloquently about this issue. And unfortunately, the Democratic chairman of the Education Committee blocked this bill for many weeks here in Harrisburg. And so there was a discharge resolution.
And what is a discharge resolution?
So it's part of the House rules. It states that if the majority of the members of the House want to vote on a bill, it would take 25 signatures to then force the chairman of the committee that the bill is in to send that bill out of the committee. So what the chairman did. And
you did sign that discharge resolution.
Yes, I signed a discharge resolution, and because I think it's an important issue that a lot of Pennsylvanians care about, and I think it's something that people should know how their representatives feel about that issue when they go in to vote. So we should be voting that on the House floor. So instead of discharging that resolution and letting it come to the House floor, the chairman, the Democratic chairman of the committee, and all the Democrats on the committee voted. No comments were made by them. Many other folks had spoke on the issue of wanting this bill to come up for a vote, and they voted unanimously to take the bill and send it, re-refer it to the Health Committee, where now it starts another process of 15 to 20 days before another resolution can be brought forth, and then they'll just take it and they'll send it to another bill. For whatever reason, Joanna McClinton, Matt Bradford, the Democratic leader, the Speaker of the House, do not want this subject coming up on the House floor. And I think it's shameful. The young ladies and the female athletes across this Commonwealth deserve the right to compete in fair sports that it was why Title IX was enacted.
No, absolutely. It's definitely a disservice to our women in Pennsylvania. And even last week with the University of Pennsylvania admitting their wrongs during that, we should be following the trend, but instead we're just taking a step back and our girls are being silenced. And your voices on the House floor, they're also being silenced without even the opportunity to debate.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic that so many progressives want to stand up on the House floor and scream about democracy and equity. All right, where's the equity in letting biological males compete against females?
Yep.
Where's the democracy when over 80% of Pennsylvanians believe that biological males should not be allowed to compete in women's sports? Now, look, there are co-ed sports, right? There's a lot of co-ed teams out there. Karate, a lot of the karate studios are co-ed. There's a lot of co-ed sports that people can go out and do. If biological males, no matter how they want to dress or comb their hair, want to compete against other biological males, they have every right to.
But even if there is a co-ed recreational sport, they're not changing in the same locker room as each other.
No. Yeah, and that's a big issue as well. So it really is. It's just common sense, and it's just disappointing. And the smugness to how they did this. And if anybody wants to go on our website, there's a link there that they can actually watch the committee vote. And it was really disrespectful to all the young female athletes across this Commonwealth.
No, absolutely. What else is going on? I know there was another legislation or bill that was voted on.
Yeah, and this kind of happens, we don't have a budget done, and it seems like the majority wants to just come up with bills to vote on and busy work, so to speak, and it's like it's a progressive wish list. And there was a bill that was passed, and it's called the False Claims Act, right? So there's a federal False Claims Act, and this really goes back to wanting to make sure that anybody that is providing services for the government, that they're not filing false claims and that they're delivering on the goods. So the federal government has a False Claims Act, and they can go out and investigate. There was just a multi-billion-dollar international crime syndicate that was found to be bilking Medicaid out of money, and the U.S. Justice Department shut that down. But this bill here, what this bill does, it really convolutes it and makes it to the point where actually the state would lose out on money, and this would be a huge win for really for trial attorneys and kind of those, you see the ads on TV all the time. Have you been hurt at work? Have you done this? Have you done that? Contact Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. We'll get you a big settlement. What they don't tell you in that ad is that you're going to get peanuts and they're going to rake in big bucks, right? And that's what this False Claims Act that was sponsored, this House bill does. It doesn't go after the bad actors. It really sets up a point where if somebody's a whistleblower, it rewards the whistleblower, so it puts a financial incentive to somebody. So maybe you have a disgruntled employee or anything like that. At a time when rural hospitals are struggling to stay open in this Commonwealth, we are the second worst state in the nation. They call it a judicial hellhole for frivolous lawsuits being lobbied against our hospitals and our healthcare providers. I mean, so much to the point where we have a maternal health caucus because they're looking at why are so many women dying during delivery. But we're finding out that a lot of women are driving an hour to an hour and a half to a delivery room to give birth because so many hospitals are shutting down or not doing deliveries because of this so many frivolous lawsuits. And now we're taking a whole new level, and we're going to reward whistleblowers with up to 20% of the claim. It could be millions of dollars. So
is that also part of the federal program, rewarding the whistleblower as well?
So it is part of the federal program.
Okay.
So there is already a program in there. But this is going to incentivize it for maybe you have a disgruntled employee. But what this bill doesn't do is it doesn't go after the false claims or the fraudulent claims. It goes we've all heard about coding and billing. A lot of times you go to get a procedure done, and maybe the doctor says you need to have this follow-up. And then the way it's coded, the insurance company will deny it because it has to be coded properly. So there's a lot of technicalities. First thing, the interesting part to know is that healthcare is the most regulated industry in the nation and in our state. So there are so many layers of regulations and the coding changes. But we already have insurance companies that are looking out for this fraud all the time, right? Because they're paying the claims. But what this would do is it would really incentivize whistleblowers financially. Why do you have to get paid to do the right thing? Right? Why should it be a financial gain? And then we're going to take private attorneys. So they're then going to go to a private attorney if the attorney general doesn't file the case, or the U.S. District Justice doesn't file the case, because that would be their responsibility. Maybe there's not evidence there. But they're going to get some, and we see them all the time. I used to watch football games and see advertisements where America used to sell cars that we made, and now every program you watch is just endless advertisements for attorneys, right? And it's sad, but this is going to be a huge boom. And go figure. I mean, the progressive agenda has been to really go after and attack these individuals. So on the House floor, the maker of the bill stood up and said, "Oh, if you don't vote for this, you're supporting fraud." That's a ridiculous statement to make. Right? There's nobody that wants fraud. As a chairman of the Human Service Committee, I want to make sure that every dollar that we spend in Medicaid is going to those folks. How can it be that, the fact of the matter is we have people on waiting lists, but yet Medicaid and the Department of Health, Shapiro's Department of Health, is paying out at one of the highest error rates in the nation, SNAP benefits. Right? That money could be going to help those on the waiting list. We're paying out people that shouldn't even be on the Medicaid rolls. right, that have health care. I mean, Medicaid, SNAP benefits have exploded by over 500% in the last 20 years, Medicaid by over 300%. A lot of those folks are ineligible and they're just getting approved. So if you really want to go after fraud and abuse in the system, the department can already do that. All this is doing is weaponizing trial attorneys to come out and file lawsuits, frivolous lawsuits against healthcare providers, which in the end is going to affect you and I and everybody else in this Commonwealth. When you do have a medical emergency, that emergency department is going to be farther away or is just not going to be existent.